The smoke has cleared, and we're ready for a Friday night show, John. How are you tonight?
All right. So the smoke has cleared. It's not red outside anymore. Outside.
Definitely not
The
red. And
okay.
today was much better, actually. I was outside. They still said that the air quality index was dangerous, but I think it was
Mm-hmm.
like 400 or something the other day, and I think 100 is bad. And so
Mm-hmm.
this was a lot better. It seems kind of normal, and also it feels like it's going to rain, so that would be helpful at this
Mm-hmm.
moment. But most people on Friday nights, John, are anticipating, I don't know about most people, because we would have millions of subscribers in that case, but a lot of people who watch Crowdsource the Truth are eagerly anticipating John Cullen Investigates, which people will be able to watch. Now, we've got a viewer named Molly Black. This is not the Molly Black who was a client of 21st Century 3D, is it, Molly? If it is, hello. Even if not, hello. People can join us on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, Odyssey, Substack, and Patreon and Subscribestar for Crowdsource the Truth. You know, John, I've been thinking a lot about 3D lately because Apple has introduced that Pro whatever headset, and you're going to be able to watch 3D movies
Mm-hmm.
in there. So I don't know. I've been talking to some of
Mm-hmm.
my old 3D friends. It is the same Molly Black. Wow. Hi, Molly. Because we're now broadcasting on LinkedIn. Great to see you, Molly.
Ah, there you go.
So we've
There you
got
go.
some 3D clients from the old days joining us on Crowdsource the
Wow.
Truth. I think most of them think I'm crazy, but Molly, I do recall, was very cool even back in the day. So welcome, Molly, if this is your first time watching Crowdsource the Truth. John, we're going to be talking about all this discussion about UFOs and aliens. It seems weird to me. What do you think?
Well, it's been a crazy week for news. As we're recording this show, the former president of the United States was indicted.
Yeah.
So there's so much stuff that's happening in the news this week. The Congress and James Comer have come forward with whistleblowers and documents that have said that the current president of the United States allegedly
Hmm.
received a certain amount of money from, I guess, somebody that you probably shouldn't have, or wouldn't expect him to. And so,
Ukraine.
well, we don't want to put too sharp a point on it. The point is whether the money came from China or came from Ukraine or came from
All
some
of the
guy in
above.
Bulgaria. Yeah, who knows where the money came from? But if it's $5 million and it happens when you're vice president, you know, maybe I should run.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. I didn't know the job paid that well, to be quite honest with you.
Ooh.
So we're gonna look at So we're gonna look into that stuff. What do
Hey,
you got
speaking
there?
of
What are you looking at?
3D, John, look at this awesome rendering of Mar-a-Lago. I'll tell you, at least somebody at the New York Times knows how to do something. They can make cool,
Yeah,
fancy
yeah,
graphics.
yeah. Their graphics department does a nice job. They do. Malaki Brown, I think, is the spook who runs that program. So we'll talk about him in another show.
Malarkey Brown.
Malaki Brown,
You know,
Malachy, Malaki Brown.
because that's what Joe
He's
Biden said these accusations are, is malarkey. Hey, Scott, we've
That's
got a
good.
lot of 3D clients showing up now because the LinkedIn thing is working. That's great.
There you go.
Wonderful to
There
see
you
some
go.
of the old 21st century 3D people there.
Yeah, yeah. Opens up a whole nother world. Well, we've got only a handful of slides tonight. So basically, what happened was uh, Tucker Carlson did his first Tucker on Twitter broadcast this past week. He actually did two of them. He did one yesterday and one a couple days ago. The first broadcast that he did, he said a couple things that were pretty important, pretty poignant. And one of the things he said is, we had a whistleblower come forward from the Air Force. And he's like, if everything was kind of normal, this would be the story of the century, the story of the millennium. And I said, but something,
Huh.
he's like, but why is this not the story of the millennium? And so we're going to take a closer look at that tonight. So in fact, yes, the president was just indicted, I guess hours ago. And what Tucker said in that show is important. And he said, if there's other creatures here from other planets flying around, and wasn't Donald Trump already impeached 3 times? How many times, it's like,
Twice.
haven't we seen this movie before? I mean, so the fact that they're going at this again and again and again, it's like, my, oh my. The coincidental timing of it, I think Don Jr. put very well in a tweet today and said, wait, so Comer came out with the document saying that $5 million went to Biden and my father's getting indicted, less than 48 hours later. It's like, come on, this is really? So that's all happening. And we're going to go talk about UFOs. So with all that news on the table, Tucker broached the subject, and this topic has come up this week. And I think it's important that we take a close look at it. So,
wait,
what do you got?
Well, this is saying Jack Smith's wife produced a Michelle Obama documentary and made donations to Joe Biden. Really, the most upsetting thing about the involvement of this guy, Jack Smith, as a special counsel, the purpose of the special counsel is supposed to be to have a prosecutor who is not controlled by the Department of Justice, because the President of the United States is the head of the Department of Justice. So the idea is you create this special counsel so he can't be influenced by the president. But there's never been a time before that they used a special counsel to investigate somebody who is not the president, which Trump is not. And it's just very strange. It's really the most troubling thing, John, is just like with COVID, we're realizing how many people who we thought were normal fellow Americans, but are actually psychopathic lunatics who hate the Constitution and revel in the unfair, the abuse of justice, really. It's distressing.
Well, and I think the other aspect of it is what people expected to be sort of the old guard of the Republican Party are somewhat missing in action, other than maybe Ted Cruz. I heard Ted Cruz spoke out about it, but it's really the new guard. It's, Marjorie Taylor Greene, it's the Lauren Boeberts, it's this new generation of representatives that are in Washington now who are speaking out. It's not Lindsey Graham. It's not Mitch McConnell. It's not the guy from Utah who ran for president, who's very handsome, Mitt Romney. So none of them seem to be standing up for the former Republican president of the United States in this situation. So again, it sheds a whole lot of light on what's happening. But with all that happening, again, is that the red herring? In other words, this guy comes out, drops this bombshell. Is that the red herring? So we've got a couple clips that we're going to play. We might even have a clip that we could play on YouTube. And we've got a couple slides to share with the YouTube audience. And when we go to the patron-only part of the show, my God, I think I have more videos in tonight's show than any show we've ever done. So let me explain to people what I did. I have curated what I believe to be the finest collection of UFO footage that's existent. It will include the government's footage. So really? That which we have from the Navy, that which we have from NASA, and that which we have from independent photographers. And we're going to listen to testimony from members of the U.S. military, members of other military. So there's a lot of video content tonight. So we only have a handful of slides in the deck that we have. And then when we go to the patron-only part of the show, ton of videos. So
cool. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I was watching this whistleblower guy from News Nation. This is the guy who
we're going to watch
forward.
That clip.
Okay,
yeah,
so we'll wait until you show it. I'm going to come right out and say it. I don't believe that guy.
Why would you? Okay, so that's your bias that you just biased the audience with before they saw the video.
Most people have seen it already, and people are saying Project Bluebeam is real. I'm not 100% clear on what is Project Bluebeam.
We're going to share that. We're going to show the video to the audience, and then we got 20 others, and we're going to look at all the stuff and say, what do we think? Right? So that's the point. So jumping to the end, and what do you think without having seen 20 videos, and you're like, wow.
Maybe you can change my mind.
That's the idea and there's a whole bunch of other people who think that the same thing. That's why I have curated a collection of what I believe to be the most credible, most compelling evidence. And the funny thing here is that for, I guess, 75 years, right? So since 1940 something, the government has been telling you they're balloons.
Weather
In
balloons,
1947,
right.
they told you that Roswell was a balloon. And I guess it was just 6 or 8 weeks ago that we sent fighter jets up over Lake Huron to shoot down a balloon. Okay. So we haven't, it's kind of similar to what Jon Stewart said when he was on Colbert. And he said, when I researched the 1918 Spanish flu, and I was hoping, back then it was take a tincture of butterfly juice and pickled eye of newt, right? And then, 10 leeches, and that was the answer. And that today we don't do that, right? And it's like, no, back then it was wear a mask, wash your hands, and stay away from everybody. It's like, we haven't made any progress in 100 years. Basically. Same thing here. NASA, the Air Force, and all these guys were telling us it was balloons in 1947. They said that was a weather balloon. And just, what was it, 6 or 8 weeks ago? See if you can pull up the story. What was the story just 6 or 8 weeks ago? We said we were shooting stuff out of the sky. We didn't know what it was. We were like, is it a balloon? Is it a UFO? We don't have any footage. We can't identify it. And then the news cycle changed.
Well, exactly. Look at this. Here's CBS News back from February when I think this story broke, saying what we know about the Chinese spy balloon. So first of all, that's a foregone conclusion right there. You've shown us in previous shows a lot of evidence that suggests that it wasn't even from China. And the most notable aspect of reporting on this this has got to be a different David Martin. But the most notable aspect of this that I've noticed recently is that when Joe Biden was at the G20 or wherever he was falling on his face most recently, the whole Chinese balloon came up and he was speaking about it. You know how when I am very obviously trying to say things in a way that is not actionable, where I'm speaking like, this is public domain information that I'm just giving you my opinion about. He was like that. He didn't specifically blame it on China. He was just talking around the whole thing.
Like
and
COVID.
China's never admitted it was theirs.
Right. Of course not. Of course not. So we looked at the name of the company is Raven Aerostar Thunderhead. But that same week, before we shot the balloon down over North Carolina, we had fighter jets up over Lake Huron and up in Alaska and the Northwest Territories, and we shot one down for the Canadians. There was all kinds of stuff going on up there, and we kept saying we don't know what they are. Well, what the hell do we need F-35s and F-18s for to go and shoot down balloons? It just does. It's like the balloon story holds about as much water as the raccoon dog story. It doesn't. There is no raccoon dog, and the balloons are our balloons. If we're sending fighter jets up and we're shooting at stuff, we're not shooting at balloons. Why would we shoot at a balloon? What is the threat from the balloon?
Super pressure on the balloon.
We're not sending fighter jets up to shoot down balloons. So how did this story? So what was the story about Lake Huron? See if you can find the Lake Huron story.
Was that where the lady took the picture with her phone?
Well, right. And then the story gets buried, but I'm not talking about the lady's picture. I'm talking about the story where they said, yes, we launched fighter jets. We shot at something. We deployed a team to find the stuff. And we couldn't find it. We couldn't find any of the debris of the thing that we shot at. We don't really know if we hit it. What the hell kind of story is that? Yeah. What the hell is that? It's a balloon. It's a balloon. We with an F-35 and an F-18, we can't hit the balloon. We can't find the balloon. If that's the case, the U.S. military needs to just go all in for the rainbow parade, because obviously if we can't do balloon stuff,
I think we're
not good at anything. Yeah.
So by the way, this is not like operational footage on a mission. That was just like, the Farnborough Air Show or something. Look at that.
Yeah, stock not on a mission. Yeah. But the point here is we send these guys up, and a bunch of this happened within a 2 or 3 week period. And we kept saying it was a balloon. Is that a balloon? Is this a balloon? I said, what is with the balloons? There's no balloons. We've got plenty of balloons. Raven Aerostar. We can go, you and I should go visit them. We should find out where their factory is.
Where is that located?
I don't know. We got to go visit and get a tour and tell them we're ready to buy one. Well,
yeah,
that we should do a GoFundMe for. You and
to
I've
go to
never
the
done a
Aerostar
GoFundMe,
place?
but to
No,
buy, if
they'd
we could
kick
buy
us
a
off
Raven
in a
Aerostar
day.
Thunderhead, no, we could do our podcast from up in the sky. You know how cool that would be?
From the
Raven
Balloon Saloon.
Aerostar. No, not the Balloon Saloon. I'm talking about Raven Aerostars, where we want to go.
Oh, look
You
at all
own
the
the Balloon Saloon.
33s and 88s in the Balloon Saloon.
Well, that solves it. Obviously, Bill Gates owns it, so
Or Nazis.
that's your next pizza conspiracy. Am I allowed to say pizza conspiracy? I don't think I am. So we better move on. Let's go back to the deck.
Wait a minute. Didn't Bill Gates buy the WHO or something, and now they're forcing everybody to shut down whenever they decide or something like that?
Well, you can't buy the WHO, but you can certainly contribute a lot of money to them.
Rent it. Yeah.
Yeah, you can become their biggest individual contributor. Yeah, you can do that.
Well, John, I'm very pleased to share with our viewers that you have been just busting out the lights on Twitter. 15, I think you're gaining almost like 1,000 Twitter followers per week.
This past week, I think I picked up about 1,000. Yeah, give or take.
Really good.
So
people should follow John on Twitter if they are not. I_am_John Cullen.
Yeah, and what's been happening the last week or two, I think we talked about this last week, more and more people now are starting to become aware of the disappearance of influenza, and they're starting to comment on it. And even if their awareness is only in their own country, so what's happening now is a bunch of the British doctors are starting to comment on, hey, influenza disappeared. What the hell's with that? And I'm trying to help them understand, and in Uruguay and Hungary and Peru at the same exact time that it had disappeared from England, come on. So they're just looking at their own country. There's a lot of that activity on Twitter. So again, I'm very active on Twitter with the charts and the video clips and all that kind of stuff. And this is one of my my fun quotes, which is everybody now is theorizing on what happened. And was COVID this, was COVID that. And my feeling is if we have a preponderance of data, we don't really need to theorize. The data is going to tell you the story. When you look at 10 years of data and you see all the way out on the right-hand side, you see, this thing is huge. It's like, do I even need to say anything? It's like, there's the story. That's what happened. If you have the data, you don't need to sit there and contemplate.
Well, what's the threshold? When does a hypothesis, when can you call it a thesis? You just decide, or is there...
I think it's when it gets to the point where the amount of evidence is overwhelming. Right. When you have an overwhelming amount of evidence, like at what point in the Las Vegas shooting story did everybody just kind of flip the cards and go, damn it?
I don't think that happened. What happened was you and I, we stayed the course. Everybody was like all over us for maybe 2 years. Then it sort of died down a little all around. We came back and did a couple of, on the anniversary and stuff like that, but always staying with our solid path of, not coming up with new crazy theories. We've always stayed on point. And all those other people have just dropped off and gone away, and the FBI stopped investigating, and nobody has ever been able to disprove your hypothesis on that. Every new piece of evidence that's been discovered has strengthened the hypothesis. And it's just one of those sort of things where you sort of one day realize, wait a minute, this had to be right.
Right. And then that's when it's become a thesis. So, and it went in the discussion that I had with Professor Dave Cullen, Dr. Dave Cullen from Cornell a couple of weeks ago, 4 or 6 weeks ago. I said to him, I'm ready to defend my thesis on the Las Vegas shooting for a PhD in criminology. I'm ready to defend it.
Can you do that?
If you found a university who said, damn it, if it turns, so for example, let's say he's a Cornell. Cornell was the first school in America to offer a PhD program in journalism.
Oh.
Okay. If Cornell said, and let's say, Dave's on the staff, he's a tenured professor there. If he said, if this guy's right, if he's right, and he and this Jason guy did this through crowdsourcing of this changed criminology. Right. This changed criminology. right? And if that's the case, and if he can convince a room of 20 professors that that is the case, damn it, we want him here at the university teaching
With the
crowdsourced criminology
hat and everything.
with the hat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Professor sunglasses.
yeah, damn straight. So, it's that sort of concept is I'm prepared to defend that thesis. I feel that I have enough data, enough evidence for the Las Vegas shooting, and quite frankly, I think now for the COVID story as well. I think I have enough data that the thesis is a hypothesis. So here's an example. Here's a hypothesis. A hypothesis is something that you don't know with any degree of certainty whether or not it's true. And I'll give you an example. My daughter has autism, right? And one of the things with autism that they found is there's some sort of connection with autism and the lipids in your bloodstream. What's that called? The LDH
Really?
and
Cholesterol.
People take statins, cholesterol.
Right.
Right. So there's some sort of connection there, and I don't know, some loose connection. So a hypothesis would be: do statins, Crestor, Lipitor, things like that,
I don't like that
increase
stuff.
the likelihood of autism in children, given that we know somewhat older fathers
Yeah, they
tend
like
to
it.
have a higher likelihood of autistic kids, right? So when I had my kid, I was in my 50s, and I had been taking Crestor, Lipitor at some point. So a hypothesis would be that there's some correlation there, but you don't know.
Not
So
enough
then you
data.
set off to research, right? So you then set off to research that. But the hypothesis is sort of like, well, here's what we're trying to figure out. So, for example,
Hang on a second. People want to hear about aliens.
Oh, okay. All right. So we got to jump ahead then. We got to jump ahead to the next slide. So
Because we only have 2.5 minutes, and people want aliens.
Well, the patrons are going to freak
I
out
don't
when
mean
they
to
see
take
the
people
videos
off
we've
of
got.
the autism conversation, but here we go.
All right. So the thing with the aliens, Tucker brings it up in his first show. And so we're going to listen to the testimony from the U.S. Air Force guy. We're going to listen to what Tucker had to say. And we're then going to watch what I consider to be the highest quality collection of footage you're ever going to see.
Of
and
UFOs.
the most credible witnesses. And that's what I've curated for tonight's patrons. So if you guys aren't yet a patron,
now's the time.
This is a fun time to, come up with $5 a month. And you know that you can't get a Bente latte at Starbucks for $5.
I have the last time I was in a
Bente
Starbucks.
latte, well over $5. So for $5 a month, we do a show every week, right? So that means
$5.
4 shows a month.
That's
$5, man. That's $5. So
yeah,
all
extra
right.
cheese is $3.50.
You're gonna flip when you see some of this video. So the next slide is the guy. The next slide is the guy from the Air Force.
Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that I do not believe that there are distant life forms somewhere in the universe, or that there are not aliens or UFOs. I just don't believe this guy. I don't believe the government. And you know what, John? This is the exact same, formula, recipe, whatever, as Twitter. You know what I mean? When Elon Musk wanted to buy it, they're like, nah, no way, no. And then he was like, oh, no, now you have to buy it. So for 80 years, they're like, UFOs, are you crazy?
Oh, yeah.
And now they're like,
Absolutely.
no, dead serious. We got the aliens
That's the funny
right
thing.
in the
That's the
room.
irony.
Right back here in the room.
That's the
It's not
irony.
the irony. They're
Is that-
lying.
Well, but the irony is that when they come out and tell you, well, here it is, and everybody's like, nah, that's not it. So it's
just
hysterical,
saying,
but
in the case of Twitter, and in this case, it's like you come out of it's like in grade school. You come out of the bathroom and someone's waiting there like, oh, why don't you sit down in the chair? I'm like, well, why don't you sit down in the chair? No, I prepared it for you. Sit down in the chair. And they put a tack in the chair or something. Obviously, you're not going to sit there. But people are going to join us, John, on the sponsor exclusive segment right now. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes talking about UFOs, all this other stuff. Join us on subscribestar.com/IamJohnCullen, patreon.com/IamJohnCullen, odyssey.com/@crowdsourcethetruth, crowdsourcethetruth.substack.com. Even if you don't become a member on Substack, get on there for free and read the Twitter coup. It's extremely important, and I've just begun to write the Twitter coup Chapter 2. That will be ready soon. We'll be back in less than 5 minutes. Join us for the sponsor exclusive segment coming up right after